Okay, so, we're diving into some fascinating stuff today, right? Like you sent over all these articles about using guided meditation to deal with anxiety.
Okay.
And there's this one that really caught my eye. I think it was called 5 Minutes to Calm,
Mm.
something like that.
Yeah.
And honestly, like I'm all about these little quick wins,
Yeah.
What I love about that whole approach is it really changes how we think about meditation. It's not about finding a whole hour in your day to be perfectly zen and quiet.
What's so interesting about that approach is how it sort of reframes meditation, right? It's not about this big commitment of time. It's really about just these little mini breaks that you give your brain throughout the day.
Yeah, like just hitting the pause button in
Exactly.
the middle of all the chaos.
Yeah, and these articles you sent really get into how and why that is so effective, especially for dealing with anxiety.
Okay.
Because it's not just about, masking the symptoms of anxiety in the moment. It actually helps you rewire the way your brain responds to stress over time.
Okay, so rewiring the brain, that sounds kind of intense.
It does.
So is that what they're talking about when they say, like, be present in the moment?
Yeah.
Because, like, honestly, when I'm feeling anxious, the last thing I want to do is just, like, sit with all those thoughts and feelings.
Right. It seems very counterintuitive, right?
Yeah.
But think about anxiety like a runaway train of thought, right?
Okay.
Guided meditation, especially when you have that guide's voice, it's like this gentle braking system. It's
Oh,
redirecting your attention to something very immediate. Maybe it's your breath. Maybe it's the feeling of your feet on the floor.
okay.
It kind of stops that train from going too far down the track.
So instead of, like, laying in bed at 2 in the morning thinking about my to-do list,
Hmm.
there's a way I could actually quiet those thoughts.
Yeah, you're not silencing them completely, but you're giving your mind a different task to focus on.
Okay.
And the more you practice this, the easier it becomes to kind of access that pause button whenever you need it.
So it is like building a mental muscle, even if that sounds kind of cheesy.
It is.
But I think one of the things I've always wondered about meditation is, do you need all this special equipment?
Right.
Do I need a cushion and
Yeah.
incense and like,
Thankfully, no.
okay,
And these articles actually do a good job of debunking that myth.
okay.
You don't need anything fancy. You can literally do this in your living room, in your parked car, at your desk, at work, if you can sneak away for 5 minutes. And starting with just 5 minutes is key, especially when you're first starting out.
Okay.
Find a guide whose voice like there's tons of apps and videos out there
Yeah.
and just see how it feels.
So no judgment if my first attempt is not exactly a peaceful retreat.
Zero judgment.
Yeah.
The more you can let go of expectations, the better, because you just want to be present with whatever comes up.
Okay.
It's a practice, remember.
Uh,
It's not about achieving this perfect meditative state.
yeah, this is already making me feel less intimidated by meditation.
Good.
But let's talk about the science of this for a second, because you said rewiring the brain.
Yeah.
What is actually happening in our brains when we meditate?
So it has to do with how meditation, especially for anxiety, impacts our brainwaves and neural pathways.
Okay.
Studies show that it actually shifts activity away from the amygdala, which is like the brain's alarm system.
So it's constantly scanning for threats.
Exactly. And at the same time, it actually strengthens the prefrontal cortex, which is the part of your brain responsible for rational thinking and emotional regulation.
So instead of making a rash decision based on anxiety, I'm engaging the more level-headed part of my brain.
Exactly. You're not trying to become emotionless,
Oh, okay.
but it's about developing the ability to observe those anxious thoughts without letting them completely control you.
Oh,
And that changes how you respond to stress in general, not just in those few minutes that you're meditating.
it's like that saying, you can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf.
Exactly. And the more you practice surfing those waves of anxiety through meditation, the more skilled you become at navigating all of that.
Okay, you've officially convinced me to like up my meditation game.
Good.
But it's like walking into a mental gym and being like, wait, what do I actually do?
Right.
Are there specific types of guided meditation that are good for anxiety?
There are, and these articles actually highlight a few
Okay.
that might be right up your alley. One that's super powerful is called loving kindness meditation.
Loving kindness.
Sometimes it's called meta meditation.
Okay, I am intrigued. Tell me more about this meta magic.
It's about cultivating a sense of warmth and compassion.
Okay.
First towards yourself, which can be a radical act in and of itself, right?
Yeah.
Especially for those of us prone to anxiety.
Yeah.
And then you gradually extend that warmth and compassion outward to others.
So instead of being anxious about my to-do list, I'm sending good vibes to my to-do list.
Not quite.
Okay.
More like you're shifting from that self-critical inner voice to one of acceptance and kindness.
Okay.
It's like creating this mental space where worry and judgment, they kind of take a back seat. And from that calmer place, it's easier to then tackle those to-dos, wouldn't you say?
That makes a lot of sense.
Hmm.
So how do you actually do loving kindness meditation?
It often involves focusing on specific phrases that kind of evoke those feelings of compassion.
Okay.
You might start by directing them inward, repeating silently to yourself, "May I be well, may I be happy, may I be peaceful."
Okay.
And then you can gradually extend those feelings to others.
Okay.
Maybe start with someone you love very dearly, then maybe think about a neutral person like the barista who made your coffee this morning.
All right.
And eventually you can even extend those feelings to someone that you're finding difficult,
Whoa, even to that coworker.
even to that coworker.
That's advanced.
It's not about condoning someone's actions. It's really just about recognizing everyone's humanity.
Okay.
It's like a practice in radical compassion.
And I imagine that then spills over into everyday life.
Exactly.
Like I'm not going to start hugging my printer or anything,
Right.
but it's about shifting that inner dialogue.
Yeah, it's about cultivating a kinder, more patient way of speaking to yourself,
Okay.
which then influences how you interact with the world.
Okay. Loving kindness meditation is officially on my to-do list, or maybe on my to be kind list.
There you go.
What about other techniques? You mentioned 5-minute meditations. Like, what if someone only has time for a quick reset?
Mindfulness meditation is perfect for that.
Okay.
And it's really about bringing your attention to the present moment.
Okay.
Simply noticing your thoughts, your feelings, your bodily sensations without judgment.
So it's like telling my inner critic to hold my coffee. I'm just going to be present for a second.
Exactly. And you might focus on your breath,
Okay.
noticing the physical sensations of breathing,
Okay.
or even just noticing the sounds around you.
Okay.
It's about grounding yourself in the here and now,
Okay.
rather than getting lost in those worries or to-do lists.
It's funny because I feel like I get some of my best ideas when I'm not actively trying to think.
Yes.
When I'm on a walk or in the shower or something.
There you
And
go.
I'm like, oh, where did that come from?
That's exactly what mindfulness meditation is trying to cultivate,
Okay.
that same state of mind. And the more you practice, the easier it becomes to kind of drop into that stillness,
Okay.
even in the middle of chaos.
So we have loving kindness to cultivate compassion.
Yes.
We have mindfulness for tuning into the present moment.
Yeah.
Anything else that we should have on our radar?
Those are two great starting points.
Okay.
And from there, the world of guided meditation is your oyster.
That's amazing.
You've got visualizations, you've got body scans,
Wow.
you've got meditations specifically for sleep or for focus.
Yeah.
It's about finding what resonates with you and your needs.
It's funny. Before we did this deep dive, I always thought meditation was about chanting on a mountaintop
Right.
and completely clearing your mind.
Yeah, it's a common misconception. And
Yeah.
thankfully, these articles you sent do a good job at debunking some of those myths because it's
Right.
really much more accessible
Yeah.
and honestly much more human than a lot of people realize.
Yeah. And speaking of human, we've talked about all the good stuff.
Right.
But
Mm.
are there any potential downsides to guided meditation?
That's such an important question,
Right.
and one I'm glad you asked.
Yeah.
Because for the most part, guided meditation is very safe.
Okay.
And it's beneficial for most people.
Okay.
But with any tool, especially one that you're using that involves your mind and your body, you want to be mindful,
Right.
particularly if you have any pre-existing mental health conditions.
So for someone listening who's okay, this all sounds great,
Yeah,
but what's the catch?
right.
What are some things to be aware of?
Well, for starters, guided meditation is not a replacement
Okay.
for traditional mental health treatment.
Okay.
So if somebody is currently in therapy,
Yeah.
or they're taking medication for a mental health condition,
Yeah.
this should really be viewed as something that complements their existing care,
Gotcha.
not necessarily a substitute for it.
So you're not saying ditch your therapist and just go all in on meditation.
Exactly. It's about figuring out what works for you
Okay.
and integrating these practices into your life in a way that supports your overall well-being.
Makes sense. And a lot of times that is multifaceted.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What about risks for people who maybe aren't currently in therapy,
Right.
but maybe have a little emotional baggage?
Right. So that's where things can get a little tricky sometimes.
Okay.
Because especially when you're first starting out with meditation, it can sometimes bring up unexpected emotions or
Oh,
memories.
so it's I'm finally getting quiet
Right.
and all that stuff hello,
Precisely.
I'm still here.
And while this can be a really important part of the healing process,
Okay.
it is important to kind of be prepared for that.
Yeah.
So if challenging emotions do arise during meditation,
Yeah.
don't hesitate to reach out to a mental health professional for additional guidance and support.
So it's like having that safety net in place before
Exactly.
you start exploring those deeper parts of yourself.
Exactly. Approach the practice with a sense of both openness
Okay.
and self-awareness, knowing when it's time to maybe seek additional support.
Okay. Is there anything else that we should keep in mind?
One more thing.
Okay.
And, we've talked about how if the benefits of guided meditation are backed by science,
Right.
but it's not a quick fix. It's
Okay.
not like you meditate once and suddenly
Wine unlightened.
you're enlightened, right?
Right.
It really is a practice,
Oh.
a journey of self-discovery.
Yeah.
And some days are going to be easier than others.
Right.
But the key is to approach it with that sense of curiosity, with kindness towards yourself,
Okay.
and a healthy dose of patience.
That sounds like good life advice in general.
It really does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of it. It's not about, striving for this distant state of perfection. It's
Yeah.
really about showing up for yourself each day exactly as you are
Okay.
and cultivating a more mindful and compassionate way of being.
I love that. So for our listener who's been on this journey with us, what is one tangible thing they can do today to explore guided meditation?
I would say start by exploring some of the many wonderful resources that are out there
Okay.
online through meditation apps.
Yeah,
A lot of them offer free trials.
that's true.
So you can really experiment and find a guide whose voice and style resonates with you.
Awesome.
And I know you mentioned earlier that you were drawn to those 5-minute meditations.
Yes.
So why not start there? It's
Yeah.
such a great bite-sized way to start experiencing the power of this
Yeah.
without a huge time commitment.
No mountaintop required.
Exactly.
Amazing. Well, this has been incredible. I feel like we've learned so much about guided meditation for anxiety. And for you listening, we hope this is giving you a clearer sense of what this practice is all about, how it works, and even how to get started. If you have more questions or want to share your meditation journey with us, head over to our listener forum. We love hearing from you. Until next time, may you find moments of peace and presence in the midst of your busy day.